Peace, 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 peace. This is your sister Rue, MaWu Lisa Temple in the beautiful, gorgeous upstate New York, Hudson Valley area. And I come to you today with another episode of The Healing Chamber. I thank you so much for joining us on tonight. What we'll be talking about is something that's very important, and I think a lot of times gets overlooked, especially in our community. It's communication, health, and family. Now, I want to remind you of our African proverb that we've been using for this series. He who conceals his disease cannot expect to be cured. He who conceals his disease cannot expect to be cured. He who conceals his disease cannot expect to be cured. You know, I repeated that 3 times because 3 times is the sunnah. But I also repeated it 3 times so it can really sink in. I remember when I first read it, I was ambivalent. I felt some way about it because I thought about how I was raised. And I thought about how I've tried to be in these latter years of my life. You know, once you start a journey and you begin to transform and change, you start to examine the way that you were taught things and if they're of any benefit to you anymore, and if there's things that maybe did not benefit you, and maybe you can now change this, be the vanguard to make the change in your life, space, family, community. So in talking about communication, about our health, I don't know about you, the people that can hear the sound of my voice, but my mom and dad did not run around telling us what was going on with them. If we found out anything, we found out by eavesdropping or hearing one of the other family members gossip about it. But our parents did not sit us down and say, hey, this is what's going on, because we were raised very much in a time where children were supposed to be seen and not heard. And definitely not taught to, communicated to, or consulted or anything. So moving forward, when things would go on, it would be such a terrible shock to our system. I remember when we lost my grandmother. We were so confused. We had just been in her house. We didn't understand what was going on. She was fine, or so we thought. We didn't know she had a myriad of problems already going on. And maybe we shouldn't have, maybe we should have, but I just think back, thinking my grandmother is like Superwoman. So, but fast forward, when it was my mom, oh, how I wish she would have talked to me about so many things. So when it comes to my health, and those I usually work with, I explain to them the very things that we're going to be talking about tonight. How do we communicate with our loved ones about chronic illness, chronic disease, chronic pain, and other things? Your health, your family are the core of your being. Remember, I talked about health being our optimal birthright. In Islam, they talk about our children, our families being tests. So these things go together in my mind, see? But where does this communication begin? How do we begin to talk about our health with our family, loved ones? Well, first it starts with communication with your healthcare provider. You have to understand what's going on. When you are first diagnosed, there can be a myriad of feelings, emotions, thoughts, questions going on. You get confusion, like, what do you mean? this is happening. Disbelief, shock, this can't be. Denial, this is not happening. I'm being punked. And sadness, why is this happening? Why is this happening to me? And anger. That's one that I personally can say that I even had shame and guilt about. I was ashamed that I was angry. I was ashamed that I was angry, that I had something going on inside happening to me that I had no control over. Or so I thought. So anger, I think, is overlooked when we are listening to our providers tell us these things and how our life from that second has changed. Because everything you thought you were going to do and how things were going to go, we are at a bump in the road. And we need to communicate with these providers so we truly have to understand what is going on. We can't walk away half knowing what's going on with us. Well, I think I understand. No, you ask questions until you get answers. You seek a second opinion if you need to. But in that moment, you are to say to that provider, okay, you're telling me this. What does this look like for my life? How do I move forward from here? What is life like with this chronic illness, chronic disease, chronic pain? How close to normal will my life be, whatever that is? What will be required of me? How much better can I get? Now again, remember, MaWu Lisa Temple does not sit here and try to diagnose or give any medical advice, but in this particular case, as I always say, ask questions. And these go directly to the provider. You're not going to walk out here and tell me I got something going on, and then when I ask you, you don't have time enough to tell me what it is. One of the biggest problems people have in communication in their health is feeling like when they talk to their provider, they are not heard, especially in our community. You go in and tell them you got a headache, you're too fat. You're eating fat back, not realizing you're a vegetarian, and you don't even, you understand what I'm saying? They don't even know their patients. So you begin to feel like just a number, just some person they tell in the course of their day, hey, yeah, by the way, you're dying. Talk to you later. See you next week. See the receptionist on the way out. Many of us don't have a healthcare team that we can really talk to and feel like know that we are being heard. We are being listened to. That what we're saying is being comprehended. They understand what it is we need from them in that moment. But because many of us weren't even ever taught to ask anything about our health, we don't even know the questions to ask. And in that moment when you're being told that something so critical, so life-changing is going on, you definitely can't come up with questions sometimes. One of the things I always suggest to people, keep a little notebook with you. I do that whether it has to do with the doctor or not. Keep a notebook with you. Write stuff down. Thoughts are fleeting. They come and they go. Especially as we are bombarded with things all the time. Sensory overload. So the confusion, the disbelief, the shock, the denial, all these things go on. You think about so many things. And then you think about, who am I going to tell this to? Who do I tell? Who do I tell first? What do I say? How much do I share? What I tell people is this process right here is your own. This process is your own. Nobody can tell you what you can feel or what's right, quote unquote, or wrong to feel in that moment that you're being told that your life is changing forever, or has changed forever, or confirmed the thing that you thought was going on. So now though, who do you tell? So for those who are married, and I'm gonna stick with married first, if you're a younger person, maybe your parents, your sister, your brother, your close companion. Who do you tell? What do you say? How do you begin to broach that conversation? One of the things that always kind of keeps me, like I said, on the teeter-totter side of, and just ambivalent, just with the concealing what's going on, is because sometimes you just don't even know what to say because you can't even process it in your mind. So when you start telling them and they start throwing questions at you, it flusters you because you don't have an answer. And it's like, don't you think if I had an answer, I'd tell you? Don't you think if I knew what to do, I'd say, this is what we're going to do? And everybody you tell responds differently. Some people don't even know how to deal with you when you have something serious going on. Some people just shut you down. They don't even want to talk about it. And now what? You done opened up, you vulnerable, you standing there, you telling them what's going on. And they like, I don't want to hear it. Nah, I ain't doing that. I don't want to hear that. What do you do? How do you put that back in a box? And then you got a person who, oh, you need to try this, you need to try that, you need to try this, you need to try that. Did you try this? Oh, it's because you was doing this and that. Some people don't know what to do when you reveal something so intimate to them. Some people just break down and cry. Tell you how sorry they are for you. Now, depending on where you are, when you share with people, their responses, their reactions, they trigger different things in you, or maybe nothing at all. Maybe that person is one of those people who they found out something was going on and they came to terms with it. They done either shoved it down or dealt with it. But either way, when they talk to people about it, they show nothing. And that's even more confusing. Think about it to the people that is hearing this stuff, because they like, wait a minute, I'm emotional. Why they not emotional? And it's happening to them. Communication. We can't forget that communication is an art all in itself. All in itself. I always thought it was so funny that communication fell with Gemini, Mercury, because you have to be like two different people to really get on either side to really figure out, how am I saying this? How is it being received? And no, it's not your responsibility the way that people receive things, but their response is going to trigger something in you, especially when, again, it has to do with something as intimate as your health. You stand there and tell somebody, blah, blah, and they like, yeah, that happened to my cousin. Or, oh, that's messed up, yo. Like, you standing there because on the inside, you screaming like, hey, something's going on with me and I'm scared. I'm alone. I'm vulnerable. I don't know what to do. I'm confused. And they like, yeah, da. And you got some people that get mad at you. Like, it's your fault. Trust me. Ain't nothing like that feeling. I've had it. Ain't nothing like that feeling. You in duress and somebody look at you with the most filthy look, like you done did something wrong, and you laying on the floor asking for help. You know what I'm saying? So who do you tell? Who do you tell? And how much do you tell them? Do you tell them everything you know? Well, I'll say this. In this time of Google, right? All you gotta do is tell somebody, yo, I got a headache, and they'll go look up 99,000 things to find out what the headache can be or whatever. So our suggestion is, once you are ready to share this type of information with your loved ones, think about, one, who you're talking to. You know this person. You've seen them respond to other things before. And even though this is pressing you and you don't want to keep it from them, remember who you're talking to. And think about not what their response could be, but what effect their response is going to have on you. And I know some people may not understand that, but there are people in our lives who their response to things, the way they respond to things, affects us in a serious way. It's like they know our little triggers, our little buttons, And they know if they respond, they know if they give you this kind of energy, you'll respond this way, whatever. Sometimes we just predictable for those that we love. If you know you got that person who is dry and cold and blunt, you might not want to tell them first. I literally remember hearing somebody saying, yeah, well, we all gonna die anyway. That does not comfort a person that just found out they got some serious stuff going on. We all gonna die anyway? Really? That's what you say to me right now in this moment. So be mindful who you tell and how much you tell. It helps. Now, I talked a little bit about some of the feelings, the feels, the confusion and all these different things, right? Much like the stages of grief, they have these stages, and grief is actually included in the stages of hearing things about chronic disease, chronic illness. When we are diagnosed with these things, grief is part of that. So if grief has its own stages, right? And it's a part of the stages of sadness or whatever you got going on with finding out you have a chronic, you got levels of feelings and things that you will go through as this process goes on. Anybody that's ever waited for a test of any kind, any significance, knows that one day can feel like a million days, waiting for the phone to ring to tell you what's going on. And God forbid the doctor tell you they don't want to talk to you on the phone, they want to talk to you in person. Oh, you a wreck. Again, communication. I'll tell you this. Take that back to having a good healthcare provider that knows you, somebody that really understands you. A good healthcare provider knows their patient, and they know that if they tell you, "Oh, I'm a talk to you when you get to the office. Just come to the office as soon as you can." If they really know you and know that ain't gonna do nothing but exacerbate your anxiety and possibly cause you to maybe even have an accident or worse on the way, they'll tell you, "Hey, so and so, you know, I really wouldn't talk to you in person, but let me just say, blah, blah, blah." They'll give you a little bit more than just come to the office. They're not going to have the secretary call you. They'll call you themselves. I have one healthcare provider on my team that will text you, call you, no matter what time of day or night. She is a vanguard in the way of bedside manner. I'll tell you that much. Something that is truly lost on some of these up and coming physicians and providers and caregivers. People forget it only take a split second for you to be on one side of the other side of that care need. I remember telling somebody one time when my mother was really going through, I said, this could be your mother today. Not tomorrow, today. This could be your mother when you get home. Just remember how you treating my mom right now. And of course, you see their back straighten up a little bit, but they forget. Again, communication and health. We forget that when we are dealing with people who are in such a vulnerable state, how we treat, you can be the last person to say something to that person. Now I know for some people that don't matter, but for those who hear what I'm saying, those who know what I'm talking about, you hear me? Communication, health, healing. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit about specific relationships in sharing your information, i.e. with your husband, wife, and children. Again, very much I was raised in an era where children were not involved in these kind of things. My mother wasn't going to come to us and tell us anything that was going on with her. And I can remember a very specific incident that took place in my own family where if some information wasn't shared, and it caused a major rift in the family, which to this day we have not truly recovered from. We've been able to talk about, communicate, what could have been different in that scenario. But again, you don't always know how much to tell a person, and sometimes you just don't even know what to tell them. And sometimes, especially if the illness or disease has been long-standing, they don't want to hear it. They hear it. They've been hearing it for 5 years, 7 years, 12 years, their whole life, that you sick, or you in pain, or they don't even. It's not that they don't care. Let me just say that it's not that they don't care, but they have gotten used to you being in this state. So sometimes they don't understand if you don't want to talk about it anymore. Sometimes you don't realize they don't want to talk about it anymore. Again, not that they don't care. But again, chronic illness, chronic disease, chronic pain in your partner, your husband, your wife. You know, for those people who have done matrimonial services, you know, they talk about the till death do us part, you know, in sickness and in health and all this good stuff, right? That sound good in theory, you know, really do. And for some people, I think they hear that part, that, you know, and they really mean that part, like, you know, in sickness and in health, because that can mean anything. In sickness and in health can mean anything. So to make that vow to someone is very important. That we think about, do we really mean this? If you gotta clean Tyrone's behind, or you gotta, you know, bathe Mildred, are you gonna be able to do this thing right here? And we ain't talking about for now, we talking about maybe for the rest of their life. So when we taking these vows, take them serious, y'all. But how do we broach that subject with our loved ones? Now, you know, it would be unfair to say, well, if, you know, they was paying attention, they know something was wrong with me. No. People who deal with chronic illness, chronic pain, chronic disease get pretty good at hiding stuff. They work through things, power through things. Sometimes when the pain is debilitating, or whatever the situation is severe, major weight loss, weight gain, you know, whatever the case may be, something that can be seen very easily, you know, the mate can't help but see it. But sometimes it's subtle things, headaches. You know, how many people walk around with headaches and don't tell nobody? You know, chest pains. I had a former neighbor just recently have a chest pain, didn't think it was anything, had a major heart attack. They had to put 2 stents in their heart. Out of nowhere, just a regular old Sunday. Husband was right there. Grown children were right there. Nobody knew what was going on because she didn't even say anything. And then she said she felt that, you know, something else was like, okay, maybe I should pay attention to this. But how would they have ever known what was going on if she was sitting right there with them? You have to talk. You know, many people get in relationships and they get comfortable. You know, and they don't take the time to sit and talk about some of the things that's very important to talk about if you talking about spending the rest of your life together with somebody. You know, later on this in this series we'll be talking about bioethics and, you know, things like that, you know, trust and wills and all of that kind of stuff, living wills and all of that, you know. I felt like that was a bit much to add to this today. Because today is just really about how do we share with someone that something is going on with us, and this may possibly be the thing to, you know, cause my ascension. And that, you know, while nobody knows the time or the hour of the day that they'll ascend, knowing that you have a chronic illness or disease, you know, ups the chances that this may be sooner than we had planned for. I'll go back and say that one of those stages of grief that they talk about dealing with chronic illness and chronic disease is the fact that you have to mourn the fact that the life you thought you was going to live now is changing drastically. You may not be able to do anything that you wanted to do or you plan to do. How does this affect your partner? If you planned on a life of travel with your partner and you lose your legs, or you know, develop some type of disease that makes it where it's hard for you to travel. You have to travel with oxygen and all these different... That changes everything. That changes everything. So talking about these things ahead of time, sometimes, you know, it's a little grim. But you know, when we having all these other talks, you know, we should talk about, you know, things change. You get older, things happen. And no, you won't be able to plan for it all, but you should have a general idea of the things that the people in your life believe about health and wellness. You know, so many men, I want to say this, so many men suffer in silence with their health because they don't talk. You think they don't talk about the regular stuff. They definitely don't talk about their health. You know, my grandfather used to say, if it wasn't for a man having a woman, he would never go to the doctor. Now, I don't know how true that is nowadays, because people just Google and think they know what's going on with them and be self-medicating. But back in the day, you know, Big Mama made sure that, you know, Pop got a prostate exam, or, you know, had his liver checked because he drank a little bit of the extra moonshine on the weekends. But again, have to communicate for these things to happen. Have to be comfortable with discussing health. We need to normalize talking about our health with each other. Now, this don't mean that you have to stand there and TMI somebody, tell them everything that's going on with every body function you got going on. But at the same time, if it's going to affect them, it's going to affect you, it's going to affect your life, this needs to be a conversation. You know, it ain't nothing like finding out something devastating is going on with you and having somebody walk away in that moment when you tell them, this is too much for me, and walk away. And I ain't talking about walk away, come back. I'm talking about walk away and be done. Like, yeah, I don't need no sick wife. I don't need no sick husband. I'm out of here. I'm going to tell you, that will change your life. That will change how you see and share for the rest of your life. And if there are children involved, because that's what we talk about now, how do you let children know, hey, mommy or daddy is really, really, really sick, and, you know, what do you tell them? How much do you tell the children? Because, you know, again, all you got to do is tell them a word and they'll go Google it, and now they're coming up with their own conclusions. So this is why we have family conversations, because they need to understand that vast world of information out there may or may not apply to what's going on with your situation. And they can't be stressing themselves out. You know, I'll just say this. My adult siblings, we dealt very difficult. I can't even get the words out. This is part of why this episode for me was not one that I felt like I wanted to be on camera, because I am very emotional right now and I won't even hide it. Talking about your health to those you love, and sometimes you got to do it with strangers too, because you know they always changing your doctor, so you got to keep repeating things over and over again, reminding yourself how things are. But me and my siblings, we did not deal well with the ascension of my mother because we didn't know what was going on. For me, the ascension part wasn't the hard part. It was when she first got sick because I didn't know what was going on. The ascension part, after she had the severe illness that was going on, I knew that that was a possibility. But not knowing before had me so, like, was it something I could do? Could we have went to this? Could we have that's what that does to you when you don't know. So for your children, depending on their age, you know, sometimes it'll be worth having that conversation, even though it's going to be extremely difficult. It takes so much vulnerability to be able to admit to those who depend solely on you that you are in need. I read in an article recently how indigenous women are thought to be strong and looked at as strong. So many times when they are diagnosed with a chronic illness or chronic disease, people don't believe that anything will happen because they like, oh, she's too strong, you know. And you have people walk up to you, just be strong, just be strong, just be strong. Easier said than done. And it takes a different kind. You know, people forget, just like different kinds of everything else is different kinds of strength. You know, some people can lift the couch, some people can hold the mountain of emotions. You feel me? Most women suffer in silence because they carrying weight of all the things, because they know they can't show a crack in their armor. So dealing with communication and health in the family, especially if it's a single family home, mother is not telling anybody anything. And when she do, she tell them as little as they have to, as little as she has to. But if you have youth that have watched you over the years, you can't hide it from them. So it has to be conversations that take place, and they are not always comfortable. And again, everyone will respond differently. Some people will be very, very sad, and some people won't even be moved. And again, it's no reflection. It's just they see you as this pillar of strength. So they think, this too shall pass, as we taught with everything. But having those conversations is important. With your mate, with your children, your siblings. You know, what I tell people is that, you know, that depends on your comfortability, how soon you tell, or if at all you tell your siblings what's going on. You know? But those that are in your immediate support system, at some point, especially if you have a debilitating illness, at some point they will see you begin to break down. You will need help at some time. And at the moment you need the help is not the moment they need to be finding out that something was wrong with you. I'm speaking to myself first, because I keep my cards very close to my chest about a lot of things. And it's because of the experiences I've had in sharing with people before and showing my vulnerability in places before. And not being able to truly feel comfortable with sometimes with people's responses or lack thereof. You know? So again, communication, health, very important. Family, friends, your job. Think about it, you know. Are you going to still be able to work the same way anymore? Do you want everybody in the office to know what's going on? Who can know? Now, of course, you know, you got laws that say, you know, HIPAA laws, people can't have your information released. Again, we'll talk about that when we talk about bioethics and all that stuff like that. But for right now, you know, you go in the office and Karen finds out that, you know, you got to have a major surgery. You know, she might not outright tell somebody, she going to whisper something. You know, and once she whispers and somebody else whispers and the story gets around, now, you know, you getting your whole head transplant. So now you got to actually go and clear up whatever rumor is going around. That's if you care. But again, you know, you pick and choose who you tell and what you tell. You know, if you have a job that requires you to be healthy in a way that you're no longer healthy or in a way that you're beginning to deteriorate, it is important that you say something to somebody, because you can cause harm to yourself and to your clients or whatever, the people you serve. You know, i.e. a person that has seizures, you know, and they work with small children. Somebody should know that this person is prone to seizures in case it happens in a room full of 5-year-olds. You understand? I'm sure that's clear. But you know, you work at, you know, Family Dollar and you having problems with whatever, it's not important that everybody in there know. And if you do tell somebody, you have to be comfortable with the fact that they may end up telling someone. Again, discretion. Communication. We can't forget that people have different kind of communication styles. You know, people hear and listen differently. Speak and hear differently. So some people share information one way and receive it another, blah, blah, blah. So, communication, health, family, friends. Talking about it. You know, that proverb that we open with, he who conceals his disease cannot expect to be cured. What I will say is that I understand that from both sides of it. And I see how concealing your disease can harm you. But I also know how sometimes concealing your disease from the right people can help you. Because again, we can't forget that the way we think about our illness is important. And if we don't have people who are pro-life around us, and what I mean by pro-life is people who are life-affirming. You know, like I said, that person, when you be like, oh yeah, I'm dying, they be like, we all dying. Yeah, that might not be the person you want to hang with. But the person who tells you, hey, you know, don't think like that. You know, let's talk about it. I understand why you feel that. You know, and I'm not talking about somebody pacifying you. Understand that. But again, it is confusing when you getting phone calls in the middle of a day that you're feeling great telling you that something else is going wrong. So you might need people around you who are encouraging. But remember, first and foremost, you have to encourage yourself, and the way we do that is by having a clear understanding of what is going on with us, and even when we can't, at least having resources where we can speak to someone to help us get a better understanding. With that being said, I'm going to close today. I thank you for taking time to sit with me in the healing chamber as we talked about health, communication, and family. I urge people to take advantage of the fact that you can speak, and people can hear, share. You'd be surprised how many people want to share with you. How many people want to be shared with. Some people can know something is going on with you and just not say anything because they don't know what to say. Be mindful of each other. Pay attention. Look for the signs, because communication is more than just talking. It's body language, sign symbols, all these things. Changes in mood, eating habits, hygiene, all of these things, because we know that along with being told that something is going on with you, having that communication come through, again, with that confusion, depression, all kinds of things can set in. And there are always lines of communication open when someone is going through. We just have to know how to hear it, see it, receive it. I'm your sister Rue, MaWu Lisa Temple, in the beautiful upstate New York, Hudson Valley. I thank you so much for joining us in the healing chamber. Remember, you can send any questions or requests or requests for resources to mawulisatemple@gmail.com, or you can hit us in the DMs at MaWu Lisa Temple 1 on Instagram. I look forward to seeing you all, talking with you all next week. We will be talking about crystals and gems. That is what our plan is. So in that vein, I'd like to thank you again, and just remember, we are here to heal, and we're doing it out loud. This is your sister Rue. Peace and prosperity.